So again, a very good afternoon to all of you, and thank you, Dr. Simi, for those nice words. And just a small correction, I just relinquished my, a couple of months back, relinquished my charge as the head of the department. So I'm a professor with the department now. So without much ado, let me straight away get to the job. And I understand this is a conference we'll be talking about manufacturing and perspectives of impact of COVID on manufacturing and IT, technology and other things, also on tourism. And what excites me as being part of tourism is that tourism is so very related to almost every sector and also to our existence and to our lives. Just to share with the audiences, especially the young students of the department, like many of you, I'm a management graduate and started as a teacher of business management. And as students of management, we were always told that management is very interdisciplinary. And then I shifted to tourism, only to realize and enjoy that tourism is still more, interdisciplinary, being impacted by a lot of things and influencing and impacting a lot of things. And as the chief guest for the day already mentioned, that tourism is one of the industry which is believed to be, and it is very adversely impacted by this pandemic. So let us try to understand the impact of this pandemic, what we were, where we are, where do we go from here. So on your screens is the scenario before the pandemic. Just a couple of things. The tourism is contributed around 10.3% of global GDP and almost 1 in 10 jobs around the world. And this is almost the same proportion of contribution to Indian GDP. I know there are different estimates, there are different ways of looking at tourism, but broadly, tourism and allied sectors contributed to around 10.5% of Indian GDP and around 1 in 11 jobs in India as well. Before COVID happened, the world was growing at 4%, tourism was growing at 4% as far as the arrival of visitors. This is only based on international tourist arrival. So it was growing at 4%, and the revenues or the receipts from this international travel were growing at a rate of 3%. And why was the world growing at 4% and 3% respectively? Because different regions of the world were contributing to it. And if you look at this graphic, a lot of contribution comes from Europe. So Europe was growing at 4% and 4%. And then the projected, area or the region where everyone had a lot of expectation was Asia Pacific, of which we are also a part. And so we were also growing at 4%, but the receipts were around 1%. The fastest growing region was Middle East with 8 and 8%. But as you could see, it's a smaller region, and therefore the weighted contribution of this region is small. The world was growing at 4.4 because Asia Pacific was growing at 4 and 1. Asia Pacific was growing at 4 and 1 because South Asia was growing at 7% and 5%. 7 in terms of foreign tourist arrival or international tourist arrival, to be more precise, and around 5% of the tourism receipts. So we were doing pretty well before the pandemic. And then pandemic happened and everything plummeted, and the economy plummeted, and so does the contribution of tourism to the economy also plummeted. And the initial estimates were that we're going to probably lose almost 1 trillion USD, right? So why would this happen? This would happen because this was, as far as tourism is concerned, this was one of the worst year on record in last 50 years. After the Great Recession, we never had this bad a tourism. The international tourism arrival, which were like close to, 2 billion in 2019, by 2020, they dropped by 74%. And in absolute terms, destinations around the world had, fewer visitors, which were almost 1 billion. So from nearly 2 billion, it was, close to 1 point some billion. And as emphasized by our chief guest also, this session, in the previous session, we around the world in tourism were expecting like 100 to 120 million direct tourism job losses. And for us in particular, Asia Pacific, the drop was 84%. So this is what happened because of COVID. Now look at this graphic. India is among the top 10 countries whose GDP relies on tourism, right? So here is India. And how much do we rely? We rely around 6.8 direct tourism activities. Tourism and allied activities close to 10.45% to GDP, but purely tourism activities, it's around 6.8% of our GDP, and therefore any harm or any hurt to tourism actually hurts us a lot. And what do governments do? And now this is where it's getting more subjective. A lot of my friends in tourism very rightfully are not happy with what they believe the government should have been doing as far as its response to tourism is concerned. Mr. Krishnan also said that tourism is one of the industry that was very badly hit by this pandemic. But if you look at the government's response around the world, governments around the world have broadly taken two different approaches. Governments in the smaller countries like Maldives or Mauritius or Cyprus or maybe Macau, Taiwan, not exactly Taiwan, but say, for example, Singapore, where a greater proportion of their GDP, say close to or in excess to 20% contribution to GDP comes from tourism. For them, tourism was very important for their small economies, and therefore they took a sectoral approach. But countries like India, which are big economies, all these countries, not only with India, most of the countries, they took a structural approach to handling the pandemic. Because of the pandemic, almost the world came to a standstill, which resulted into, a kind of a recession. So governments had to intervene, and they took a structural approach. So, for example, in India, as far as tourism is concerned, government was more concerned with soft loans and providing for working capital and deferment of loan repayments. So these were some of the approaches that the government of India took across the sector, and these were of particular interest or benefit to the tourism sector. Since this is a webinar organized by your university in Kerala, I must also mention that Kerala is the only state in India wherein the government decided to provide direct benefit, not much, but at least they cared to provide, say, one-time payment of, say, of around rupees 10,000 for the tourist guides who were out of the job. So it's nothing. It's not even peanuts, because they have to support a family. They would have been working throughout the tourist season. But yes, even notionally, government of Kerala did provide a direct support to the tourism sector, and very vibrant tourism. There's a very vibrant tourism sector in Kerala who works very closely with the government and other stakeholders. So this brings us to a question that is there a reason to be worried? And obviously the answer is yes. More so for us in tourism, because as on date, the estimate is that for things to get close to normal, it's going to take around 9 to 15 months, even from today. So there are different estimates. Some people say it will only be towards the end of 2022 and or maybe by July or say end of December this month. This is what different estimates say. But what is important for us is to look beyond desperation. I know we're getting desperate, a lot of people who are out of jobs, but let us search for hope and hopelessness, and let us start looking for opportunities. Sometimes, I think I start looking at this whole situation very differently. For me, it's a, kind of experiment that nature has imposed on all of us, as if we were those guinea pigs or the mice in those science experiments. That, okay, here is a different set of variables, here is a different set of constraints, so what do you do now? And finding solutions to this challenge that nature has thrown towards us probably is going to provide us with a lot of, intellectual equity in terms of solutions and creative ideas and, looking at those philosophical questions of being and why we exist, how differently could we live. So all those questions all of a sudden have come to the fore, and we means the entire humanity needs to find answers to this. I know we have survived almost a year during this pandemic. When it happened, we were in total disarray, and we didn't know how long it's going to last. We probably even now don't know how long it's going to last. So people were planning for 2 months, 4 months, some people have started thinking that when pandemic is over, when we're on the other side of the pandemic, what is that we're going to do? And they've already started experimenting, ideating about what could be done. And everyone was looking at immediate redemption. I was personally, I was a bit skeptic with this. I am not saying that redemption is not important. It is definitely important. But I said that we need to look beyond immediate redemption. Most of us have agreed, even though we do not know what would be the shape of the world to come. But most of us today agree that it's going to be a new world beyond the COVID. It's going to be a new normal. It's not only about tourism. It's about manufacturing, and it's about services, and it's about manufacturing and services across the sectors. So it's going to be a new way of life. It's going to be a new set of expectations. So, and probably I'll come up with a few examples as I talk to you. So it's not just the survival, but revival. And very importantly, it's time that we start thinking of a post-revival scenario. But once we are on the other side of the COVID, once we are done with it, once we have managed to limit our losses due to COVID, what do we do? How do we conduct ourselves in a post-COVID world? And so the strategy, we can coin different fancy, phrases for it. And one of these phrases is survive, thrive, and revive and thrive. So first attempt is to survive, save jobs, save businesses. somehow save tourism. But then, I understand there's hardship, but we need to realize and we need to appreciate that this is not a tourism crisis. This is not a manufacturing crisis. And if I may say so, even though we have made huge economic losses, it's not an economic crisis. A lot of people are, comparing the 1920s recession, the Great Depression, with this scenario. But please understand that was an economic crisis. This is a health crisis. And the health crisis need to be attended to and addressed as a health crisis. Tourism, no doubt, plays a very important role in the economy. It will continue to play a very important role in our economy and in the global economy post-COVID. But the ray of hope is that tourism, as Mr. Krishnan also pointed out, is very, very resilient. Probably it's the last industry that is going to open up. Even education will have to wait before we open up our universities and colleges for a real-time in-person transaction of academic business. And tourism will actually have to wait even after that. But tourism will be one of the fastest sector of the economy to jump back. It's very, very resilient. Next, we get to the revival thing. And the challenge for us is that because everyone in the world is hard pressed because of this pandemic, everyone is rearing to go out. Every destination, every country, every state, every touristic city, we call it destination, has made losses. They've, somehow mustered courage to bear those losses, and now everyone is rearing to go out and make up for the losses. So we're getting extra aggressive, and we means the destinations are getting extra aggressive because the same set of skeptical travelers who would be traveling around the world. So less than before, but some daredevils will be the first to go out, and everyone would be eyeing the same pie. That, okay, they must come to our destination. So destinations are coming up with soaps and discounts and perks and benefits and all those marketing gimmicks, whatever are at their disposal. From an Indian point of view, we might, look at it from a, I'll say a two-pronged strategy can be adopted. One, we need to understand, and all of you understand, being students of business, that we have a huge brand, a very popular brand, a very powerful brand called Incredible India. But on the ground, when you realize that each destination has different products to offer, tourism products to offer, and for those products, you have a different market. I'm talking of some classic, textbook marketing thing. That every provider need to identify who their market is and target their markets. So people who are coming to Kerala backwaters for backwaters are different from people who are coming to see castles and palaces in Rajasthan, where I come from. Or they are different from people in Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, where a lot of visitors are coming for, rural tourism or a few other things. So for example, tourists who were coming to Kashmir and Leh and places like these. So everyone has a different segment. And we should be targeting our segments of interest at a micro level. And that is why I'm saying identify your specific micro market and use an intense localized social media. So we have made losses, discretionary funds with us have gone down, so it would not be a very wise idea to spend a lot of money in conventional marketing. Secondly, digital marketing, social media based marketing is more cost effective. It's more pull form of marketing as against the conventional push marketing. So that is one thing that we need to focus. And earlier this week, like 4 days back, I was addressing a conference in Europe, and there were quite a few speakers, and they were sharing their experiences. Entire Europe operates, or larger part of Europe operates as one single market. You all know this, you understand this. And they rely on a very robust supply chain. And what is the outcome of this? The outcome of this was that people in one part of Europe need not be producing everything that they require, because they have a good supply chain to support them. And so if you want cars, maybe Italy or Germany are the places where you get cars from. If you're looking for some wine, maybe France and Pyrenees, or the Alpine part of Europe is one which is going to supply you. And for that matter, almost every product. So you can easily get it from somewhere in Europe. So that is how they were, that is what they were used to. And then one fine morning, all of a sudden, they had to close their borders. And Europeans were in complete disarray. And I would like to quote what one of the colleagues at the conference said. They said, we didn't even have Coca-Cola to drink because, and this was a colleague from a small country called Latvia. He says, because Latvia doesn't produce Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola also comes from some other country. And then he asked me that, what happened to you in India? I said, look, we were supported. We had our own set of challenges, but we were supported by a huge domestic market. And most of you would realize and appreciate that because of this pandemic, because of all of us being confined to our places, we have had a significant improvement in the performance of our supply chains. Let me give you a quick example. Before the pandemic, say for example, sometime in January or March 2019, if I order something from Amazon, it would normally take, say 3 to 4 days for them to deliver it. Today, some of the items that I place order for on Amazon, I receive them within less than 24 hours. So our supply chains have improved. Our economy, our exports definitely were hurt, but a lot of things were still on the move. That is the idea that the Prime Minister shared with the country. He said, let us look inwards. And very precisely, if you look at Government of India, Ministry of Tourism efforts, they've come up with a campaign called Swadesh Darshan or Dekho Apna Desh. These were some of the internal marketing campaigns that we came up with almost in March, April and May last year. The idea was that let us, once things start getting better, let us focus on domestic markets. Where do we stand today? I'm talking to you from Noida. All touristic destinations within 300 kilometers of Delhi NCR are almost 100% booked. And when I say this, I factor in that all of a sudden there is a surge in cases, in the cases that we have. And I'm also factoring in that we have started with vaccination in India. So you can factor in that, but what is going to be helpful to us is the huge domestic market that we have. No doubt a good number of jobs will be lost to technology, but please understand this is the time of churning, and as we call in Sanskrit, this is the time of manthan, and we need to keep our eyes open, remain aware that look how the world is changing, and I'm specifically addressing the students. Probably the kind of skill sets that you were targeting when you started with your courses, probably you will require a slightly different skill set by the time you pass out. So watch for the change in demand of the skills that the job market will offer to you. Now let me take a break from this discussion and bring in a few things. Couple of concepts that have particularly become very popular as we discuss tourism nowadays. But before that, as I said, and as you know, n number of people on n number of media and platforms have been saying that it's going to be a changed world with a lot of focus on sustainability and community. And I'm going to explain this to you in a moment from now. COVID did what we always wanted to do, but we could not do. You know, I'm living in Delhi NCR. You cannot even imagine the kind of pollution that we have, especially during winters. Sometimes the visibility is less than 100 meters. So what happens after COVID? Our beaches are cleaner, our air is cleaner, our mountains are serener, our forests are greener, and we always wanted this. All forms other than humans are gradually reclaiming. So since cars and jeeps and buses are not there on the highways, a lot of animals have, reclaim the spaces that they've lost to us humans. That will change. That was on the lighter side. But look, there's so many things. Look at the quality of water. We created an entire ministry for it. And it's a difficult time. But yes, what ministry wanted to do, what repeatedly those ministries of Clean Ganga and all these ministries wanted to do, happened all by itself. The pandemic has pressed the reset button to make this planet a more sustainable and a livable place. I'm also using this small break that I just announced to bring in a concept which is not a very new concept, which was given by Pine and Gilmore almost 20 years back. And this is pure business management. Pine and Gilmore said that as businesses, as industries, we immediately after the Industrial Revolution, when humans earned this capability of mass production, they were actually started trading and doing business as if the produce was a commodity. And then some of us wanted that my product be differentiated and appreciated by my consumers as a superior product as compared to my competitor. So I started branding my output. When I branded my outputs, they became products. Those added values were soon commoditized. And again, I wanted to look for some differentiators. And I said, let me bring in some value-adding abstract dimensions to my offers. So competition gradually shifted from commodities to products to services. But, with business format franchising that McDonald's suggested and a lot of quality things that industry practiced and worked on after the Second World War, especially Japanese and the Americans and to a large extent Europeans, we started commoditizing the service dimension of our offers also. So we had those standard operating procedures, SOPs for almost everything that we do today. So if a guest is there at the front office in a hotel, there is a SOP. If the guest goes out to the city, someone comes to clean your room, and then there are SOPs for it. If someone comes to a bank to transact business, there is a set SOP for that. For almost everything, there is an SOP, right? So how do we differentiate? And we in tourism, a lot of us, we said, and so did Pine and Gilmore, that competition will eventually rest on experiences. I have trained a lot of tourist guides all over the country, and one of the messages that we gave them was that tourism is not about seeing and viewing places. Tourism is about a visitor coming to a place and immersing in the experience of the place. So it's not about looking at Taj Mahal. It's about an experience called Taj Mahal. So it's not about, the houseboats or the backwaters in Kerala or the, greenery in Kerala. It's about the experience called Kerala. What's my Kerala experience as against my experience in Tamil Nadu or Madhya Pradesh or Rajasthan or if I may say so, how is my experience in Thiruvananthapuram different from my experience in Bangalore or New Delhi or Agra or Jaipur, whatever place it is. So Jaipur is a different experience, Agra is a different experience, Delhi is a different experience. So look at it. It's not about, cars, it's about the experiences. And that is what, a lot of companies are focusing. And then they left this graphic with a question mark. They said, what happens after experiences? They did not discuss it in their book, but they left us with the term transformation. They said commodities, products, services, experience, transformation. I look at it differently. Commodities, products, services, and experiences are means, whereas transformation is the outcome. And so, this was always there. We were beginning to, and we're in the business circles and more so in tourism, we're already started to discuss transformation and things like that. But this is amplified and become more visible after, the pandemic. Pandemic has in fact catalyzed this whole discussion. Means was like, what do the suppliers do for the customers? We offer them commodities, we offer them goods, we offer them services, we design experiences for them. That is what we do. But now there is a paradigm shift, and it says that what do customers expect would happen to them when they immerse in an experience, or when they get this service, or when they use a particular product, what is going to happen to them? So that is where the things are shifting. I have limited time to talk to you. I could have explained this, but let us understand this. People today are seeking transformations which are learning, changing, and growing for people. So, the example, a very poor example, I know, but this is the example that I often cite. I said, look at other, life forms, say, for example, in the 10th century or in the 16th century. Life of a cow or a horse or a lion or a dog or a cat, and life of humans in the 10th century. Then in 15th century or 16th century, and then today, there's very little change that has happened to their lives, but there's a huge change that has happened to us. We are capable of making changes to our lives, the way we think, the way we conduct the real lives and, emotional, psychological existence of us as humans. Why? Because we have created, or we have been using these commodities, goods, services, experiences as instruments for transformation. So we've used them. We have used them and evolved as better humans or humans at higher level. And we continue to do so. So that is a natural progression. There wasn't a lot of focus and discussion about it, but yes, discussion is back on these things. So, say for example, a service business charges for the activities they perform, experience businesses charges for the feelings customers get by engaging in those experiences, but a transformation business charges for the benefits customers receive by being there and consuming goods, services, experiences as instruments for these benefits. And there's just a graphic to show that the moment we commoditize, we are back one step to the same old competition. To beat the competition and move further, we need to customize. So we need to, today, most product categories will have to, or most companies, including tourism, will have to curate experiences and transformations for their consumers. What happens to me? Transformation is elevation to a higher level. Consumers are seeking to be physically fit, mentally agile, and spiritually elevated. When I say spiritual elevation, I'm saying that it's a larger part of a spiritual elevation is non-religious. I'm not getting into the debate, just sharing with you some of the recent research. Look, this is a research pre-COVID phase, 2017 East Carolina University. And to sum up, this is saying, this is all about transformation. They've just captured the emotions of the respondents, and some of them, as on your screen, suggest that people are looking for transformation. Similarly, Skift research in 2019 says that overwhelming, say 52% of the travelers are placing increased value on the potential for transformative experiences. What will transform them? I can have a whole discussion on the design of transformative experiences, but given the limitation of time that we have, I'm only running a bit fast. So tourism will no more be about services. It has to transcend to experiences and to transformation for well-being, for betterment of individuals. So slow, wellness-based experiential tourism is what probably our consumers tomorrow will be looking forward to. Just a graphic, the kind of transformative travel activities. So I'm not even reading them out, I'm just flashing them on your screens. So look at the kind of activities that people tomorrow would like to engage in. And why would they like to engage in all these activities? Because the key deliverables would be, again, I'm not reading, please bear with me, I'm not reading them out, but I'm just flashing them on your screens. Look at it. This is what people tomorrow, travelers tomorrow will be looking at. Why I say everything is related to tourism, or at least touches tourism? Because a lot of industry here in NCR, which has hired a lot of people, companies that quickly evolved to allow their people and their employees to work from home. But working from home was by itself a burnout. People were forcefully confined. So they were transacting, routine business of their companies and whatever way the companies were trying to create value. But it was a huge, huge burnout. And so what did they want? They were all rearing to go out, which gave birth to another form of tourism, which we call revenge tourism or rage tourism, where people are, bent upon taking some kind of a revenge on their situation. So I'm confined, I want to go out. And the first chance that they get, they're traveling out. And I told you, almost every destination 300 kilometers within NCR is 100% booked. Remote areas of Himachal Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Rajasthan, they're all booked. Yet another form of tourism, a lot of resorts and, they're calling it workations or staycation destinations are coming up where they're providing, you with high-speed internet, and then company hires, say, a IT firm or a manufacturing firm in NCR, hires that resort for its employees, and say 20 employees are encouraged to go to that resort, spend good time close to nature, in the greens, say for 15 days, 2 weeks, 1 week, work from there. So from working from home, now work from a more cleaner, greener, serene place. So this is how things are evolving. So your HR policies, your supply chains, everything is getting changed. So these are essentially the outcomes that people are looking forward to. So what I often tell some of my friends is that good, you're taking care of health and hygiene things, but please don't overdo it. Because overdoing health, hygiene protocols, COVID protocols is not good. In the short run, it's okay. There has to be a positive perception about it that this destination or this place of work is good, but overdoing is only extra cost and probably not with commensurate benefits. So as I start summing up, so I say travel not only for safer, but for a better experience. Another concept that is coming up in tourism, let me, I don't know how many of you know this, but one of the most reputed destinations in the world for responsible tourism is the state of Kerala in India. For a long time, they've had a discussion on responsible tourism, which was about the conduct of stakeholders, because Kerala, along with many other places in the world, and all enlightened destinations, realized that our activities have to be sustainable. We need to control the amount of harm that we cause to a destination. Post-COVID, we have moved to a newer level, a higher level of consciousness, as I said. What is that? That when you travel to a destination, do not just restrict your actions or conduct yourself in a way that you don't damage the place. In fact, contribute to the regeneration of the place. So whatever place you go, whatever place you travel, do something positive to contribute to that place. This is called regenerative tourism. So again, there's a lot of discussion. There is early evidence of change in perceptions and conduct of our travelers globally. So this is, a welcome step, a step towards creating a better world, or creating world as a better place to be. And let me conclude with a few bulleted points. Destinations will have to be safer, sustainable, and focus on niche markets, as I said in the beginning. Products would be slow, experiential, responsible, community-based tourism. As far as India is concerned, we are better placed for transformational travel. Beyond the experiences, beyond the landscape, we have products like yoga and Ayurveda and so many other non-religious spiritual products to offer. Tourism enterprise, and of course all other enterprises, will have to be more agile than ever before. For tourism workers and a lot of you who aspire to work tomorrow in tourism and in other sector, focus on or look out for reskilling, multitasking, technology savviness, which the millennials already are. Travelers will be more responsible, experience seeking, will like to have the locus of control with them. So they would like to be in control of their travel and their experiences. They would like to negotiate their experiences so that it helps them transform. Every individual has its own, is going to have their own way of growing, their own plans of growing, and so they should be able to negotiate that.